which we discuss, which we left, somewhere in between. So other than mix and max operations, which we discussed in case of hierarchical system clustering, we have another type of operation which we can apply, which we can apply on this hierarchical clustering, and that are called as group average clustering, group average link. So what you are doing, instead of min and max, you are doing group averaging of all the data points. So by saying group averaging of all the data points means that you take this point and you take all the summations that are running from this point to the other points, and similarly you do it with all the other points in this particular cluster. And once you do that, you find a average value of that. So that is basically a group average that you apply on the hierarchical clustering thing. And mathematically it is represented something like this, where you calculate the average distance between the 2 points I and j, and these I belongs to a cluster C1 and j belongs to the cluster C2. So this is basically the average clustering that you do in average operation that you do in hierarchical clustering. And this shows you a typical, how these data points are clustered using hierarchical, using average clustering. The left side is showing you the actual plot, and the right side is the dendrogram for that corresponding thing. So, and the advantage of using this hierarchical clustering, this average clustering, is that first of all you can observe that it is in between the min and max clustering. Why it is in between the min and max clustering? Because you can see in some of the points you are taking the minimum distance also, and in some of the points also take care of the maximum distance, and you are doing an averaging between this and this. In between them you have all the distances that lie in between this minimum one and the maximum one. So some way or the other its performance will also be lying in between the min and the max operation, because it's a group averaging that you are doing. So here the important thing is it is less susceptible to noise, but it is biased towards the globular structure. So some way or the other, it is in between the min and max operations. The last one which we are calling, another one is basically the distance between the centroids. So the another one is distance between the centroids, where you take the centroid of these clusters and you calculate the distance between them. So this is the another way of doing, the operation on the on this, like the way we were doing in min, max, and group average. So this is the fourth one, where you take distance between the centroids. But the important point that is, the important point that has to be highlighted here is that in these methods where we have distance between the centroids, you cannot apply kernel tricks here, the ones which we have discussed so many times earlier. So can anyone tell me why we cannot apply kernel trick here? Like, what is the reason? Any one of you can answer this? Like, why we cannot apply kernel trick in this particular scenario? Because we cannot apply kernel trick here, because the centroids that you have here, the centroids that you have here are not the data points. They are not the data points. They are something else. These point locations are not the data point location, and kernel trick always operates on the data points. So that's why you cannot apply kernel trick on these centroids, the distance between the centroids. So any questions here related to what I have discussed?
Sir, in the previous slide, I couldn't understand the globe thing, globe structure.
Globular
Globular.
structures are like this. These are non-convex structures. So basically, like
Okay.
this, these type of structures. So yeah, I didn't introduce this word, but this is actually something like non-convex thing. Okay.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Okay. Okay. So now today we finished off with this algorithm, which is hierarchical clustering algorithm. So now we will move to the third algorithm that we use in clustering, and this is also quite famous. So before going to introduce that, yeah.
Sir, I had one question that in sklearn, these four distances are there. Plus, there is one distance called as WARD, WARD.
Yes, yes,
I
that
tried to search
algorithm is,
for it.
yeah, yeah.
Couldn't understand what that was.
See, Ward algorithm, even I also didn't go through it, but yeah, that algorithm is there. Maybe you can check it on internet, like how it is working. I don't have that idea, like how that will work.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so this is basically another clustering technique that we will discuss today. So in this technique, what we are doing in this particular slide is a motivation, like why we are going for this particular technique, which we will start today. And what we are calling this technique is GMM, that is Gaussian mixture model. So before going there, we want to know the motivation, that why we require and why we want to do it. So in earlier techniques which we have discussed, so let me draw the some of the data points. So in earlier techniques, if you had something like this, some data points which are like this, then what you will do is you observe that there are two different clusters which are over here, and what you will do is you will cluster them accordingly. You will say, okay, this is one cluster and this is second cluster. So by doing this, what you are doing is you are actually creating a hard clustering type of thing. Like for example, in this, what you are saying is these data points here, which are on this part of the cluster, they belong to this, and these data points belong to this cluster. So it's a hard clustering in that you are performing on these data. The hard clustering, by saying hard clustering, means that the decision that you are taking on these data point is hard. That is, you are saying, okay, this point is this only. It is with this cluster, and this point is with this cluster, but you are not making any soft decision on these data points. By saying soft decision means, what you can say, another way of saying is, okay, though we have these two clusters, let me show you that, just a second. Though we have these two clusters, but can we define the proportion of how much content, this particular cluster, this particular point is having from this cluster and from this cluster. So we want to actually tell that, we want to uh, show that, for this particular point, how much percentage is coming from this cluster and how much percentage is coming from this cluster. So as you can see here, that most of the points that we have here on the left side are from, this particular color cluster, which is pink, which is this one. So let me draw this. So you can say that this point is completely under the influence of this particular color cluster. So let me color this, and this one also we can say is, completely under this, and this one also. But as you are moving towards the, as you are moving towards the second cluster, so what you can say is, okay, this particular cluster has, some influence of this cluster also. Just a second. So let me draw this cluster with different color. So if I draw it with this color, so what we can say is this particular cluster is having some influence of this cluster also, which is on the right side, whereas the majority of the influence is of this cluster. So that's why I'm writing, that's why I'm shading with this color in a majority and the green color with less, because we can see that it is far away from the green cluster. So we can say something like this. Whereas for this data point, you can say it's 50-50 from both the clusters. So you will partition this particular data point with equal colors, so that the proportion of the contribution from both these clusters will be same. And similarly, you can do it for the data point which are on the right side. So now notice here that now we are doing what we are calling as soft clustering. You can see here I am doing soft clustering. By soft clustering, I am saying we are putting some probabilistic measure on this particular point. We are not saying that this point completely resides within this cluster or within this cluster, as it was in the case of hard thresholding. What we are saying now is we are assigning a probabilistic measure to each of these data points, and we are saying that, okay, 70% belongs to this, 30% belongs to that. So that type of thing we want to do here. As it was in the earlier case, we were doing hard clustering, so now we are moving towards the soft clustering. And the reason why we want soft clustering type of thing is because this particular type of clustering is more practical, in the sense that, let us say, if you want to detect the cancer in the person, like if the person is having cancerous cells or not. So in that situation, what happens is, if he is having a cancer or not depends upon the genes that he is carrying out. There are some structures of the genes which actually predict whether that person is having a cancer or not. So what happens is, genes will have some ratio of the content. Like if certain threshold, basically the interaction between the genes is important, like whether how much percentage of that information in the particular gene will actually cause the cancer. It's not that this particular gene will, you can dedicate this to 100% as a cancer or a non-cancer. So depending upon the percentage present within that gene, that how much percentage actually is above the threshold, so that it can detect whether that person is having cancer or not. So based on that type of applications, we need something like this soft clustering type of thing in our algorithms. So any questions here regarding this hard clustering or soft clustering thing? So this type of thing we want, and so we want to know how we can achieve these type of soft clustering using our advanced algorithms that we are discussing today, which is Gaussian mixture model. So let us move forward and understand what that is. But before going there, let me introduce you with some preliminary requirements which are needed to understand this Gaussian mixture model. So here, if you see, maybe you have seen this, particular expression in your earlier times also. This is basically a Gaussian distribution where now your x, which is represented over here, is a vector. Earlier, when you were seeing Gaussian distributions, it was mostly for a scalar case where x was having only single element. But now, when x will become a k-dimensional vector, at that point your Gaussian distribution will take this form, where this is basically again the mu, that is the mean of the vector that you have here, and this is the covariance matrix, that is sigma, which is represented over here. This is the determinant of the covariance matrix, and you can see here, this is the k dimension. This k is coming because x is basically treated as a k dimensional column vector here. So this is just an expression that we have for Gaussian distributions, in which your x is basically a k dimensional vector. So in k dimensional setting, you will have this Gaussian distribution. So it's just a normal thing that I wanted to introduce here. So now what I want to discuss is a bit more about this Gaussian distribution, in the sense that, as you all know, in two-dimensional structure, your Gaussian distribution will look like this. So what we will be doing is more of not drawing these type of structures which is on the top, but the bottom part of the structure. So as you can see, we have discussed this in our earlier lectures also, that this is the contour plot that you actually have for the Gaussian distribution. So maybe you can recall our earlier lecture, we have discussed these contour plots. So these are actually the projection of these spherical rings that you have on the 3D structure. So these spherical rings that you have on the 3D structure, when you project it onto the 2D space, you will get these contour plots. So the diagrams that we will be drawing in the coming slides will be more of these contour plots, and we will not draw these 3D diagrams of the Gaussian distribution structure. So now what we want to see is, like, how this particular type of structure changes its shape. So we will see that in the coming slide. So here you see we have all these three different projections of the Gaussian distribution, and you can see now that how, in one of the cases you have a circular structure, in the second case you have a tilted ellipse onto the right, and in the third you have a elongated ellipse, but it is tilted to the left. So you can observe that this happens for different values of covariance matrices. So if your covariance matrix has a value of 1 and 1 on the diagonals, and 0 and 0 on the anti-diagonals, here, then what happens is, your contour plots will be more of spherical type of structures. And by seeing this covariance matrix, you can say that, the variance in the x and the variance in the y are same. That's why you have here the variance in the x side will be same as the variance in the y, and there is no covariance matrix elements here. So if you see, the covariance elements are not there, because these are the covariance between x and y and x here. So the value is 0. So that's why you have a complete circular contour plot on this in this situation. Whereas in the right side, if you see, we have covariance matrix elements also. So what it shows is that the random variable x actually depends upon the y, and there is a correlation between them, and the value is 0.5. So basically, if you put this into the expression of the Gaussian distribution, and if you plot the contour plot related to this particular uh, covariance matrix, what you will see is your Gaussian distribution will be shifted in this way. So it will be tilted. So by tilting means it has some covariance information among the random variables x1 and x2. Similarly, on the right side, if you put minus values, so this will actually tilt the contour plot onto the left side. So depending upon the covariance information that you put in this covariance matrix, the ellipses, the circular thing will become ellipse, and it will shift, and it will actually tilt around the origin. So this is actually giving you a small information about the role that this particular covariance plays in the Gaussian distribution structure. Okay, so now once we have this background on Gaussian distribution in case of the vector setting, so now what we want to understand is, like for example, if you have something like this, if you have a data set which looks like this, then if you do k-means, can anyone tell me like what kind of structure you will get for this particular for this particular data set?
Sir, how many K?
K2, let us say K2.
Okay.
So if you perform k-means here, then what will happen is, it will some way or the other will partition the structure like this. It will do something like this. But if you observe this data set clearly, then what you will observe is that we have a structure inherently which looks like this, and there is another structure which looks like this. So if you observe this, then you will see something like this over here. So the problem is, how to deal with a situation where you have overlapping of the clusters here. So you have overlapping here. This cluster is there, and there this then this cluster is there, and they are overlapping on this side. So in case of hard clustering, this situation was not possible, right? So these points which are here are now overlapped. But in case of hard clustering, what you had to do, you had to either put this into this cluster, or you put this into this cluster. But now these 4 points are having contribution in both the clusters. Like it comes in this cluster also, and it comes in this cluster also. So, by the inherent setting of this data set, you are forced to do soft clustering on these, because they are lying in both the clusters. Depending upon their contribution to the cluster, their percentage will be changed, but you are forced to do soft clustering on this. That's why you cannot apply uh, you know something like your k-means over here. So that will not be good, and it will not work also. So the important thing is how to deal with this type of situation. So you can see here, I am just giving you a final result of the Gaussian mixture model here, but we will discuss each of these points, like how we are arriving at it. But this is the result that you will get for Gaussian mixture if you do soft clustering using this GMM. So the important point here is, you can see that the Gaussian will come out with these two ellipses, which is this ellipse and which is this ellipse. So it will automatically come up with these two ellipses. It will cluster the data set, and now you can see the shading also, which is inside. And the important point is, the shading is as per the color of the cluster. I forgot to put here, these blue clusters are not because the blue color is not the cluster color, but you can remove it here, and you can put green this side. So this will be like mostly green here. So all of these will be green. So actually, the cluster color is showing you like how much percentage it belongs for that particular cluster, because we have already discussed it. So you can see the contributions of these colors to that particular cluster. Please note that I have drawn this based on, based on my understanding, but it might be the case you can feel that, that this particular cluster is having more contribution of green and less of yellow. So depending, but you can understand that what is the concept that is lying here. The percentage can vary depending upon your intuition, that which one will be close to yellow, which one will be close to green. So don't go into that detail. Just understand that how these percentages are formed within this Gaussian mixture model using this soft clustering ideas. So that is main important thing. Instead of thinking that this particular will have more of yellow or less of yellow, something like that. So this will be the final result that you will get with Gaussian mixture models. The important point that we want to discuss here is that, the data set that you are having, the two data sets, one is the diagonally oriented, this one, and this one. They both have some covariance information hidden in it. Like, if you see they will have, some variance in x direction, there will be some variance in the y direction, but there is some information in the diagonal direction also. If you see, there is some information in the diagonal direction also. So this information is actually captured if you use the Gaussian mixture model with Gaussian density functions with covariance as the parameter, that is sigma. So sigma is the covariance matrix which actually captures this directional information in the data set. Same for this. So that's why we want to use a generalized Gaussian function which can actually capture the directional orientation information of the data set. So this is basically will be the final result of the Gaussian mixture model, and the soft clustering will be done. Let us see how we will arrive on these results which I have shown you in the final slide like this. So as I was discussing the soft thresholding type of thing which we were doing, so I explained you using this particular slide where we were doing soft thresholding and how we were deciding on that. So if you observe carefully, the decision that I was taking, that this is belonging to this cluster closely and this is belonging to this cluster closely, is basically on the point that this particular cluster is not a cluster, but it's a contour of the Gaussian distribution. If you see, this is actually a contour of the Gaussian distribution. This is also a contour of the two-dimensional Gaussian distribution. So we are seeing that this particular data point is close to this contour or to this contour. So based on the distance of this point with the contour plot, we are actually telling that, okay, this will have more percentage contribution and this will have less percentage of contribution. So based on that, so if you want to see, if you are able to, if you cannot see, cannot visualize this in two dimension, so I wanted to show you in the one dimension case, like how this soft clustering is happening. So here if you see, we have two different clusters or two different Gaussian functions in one dimension. So this is shown in green and this is shown in yellow. So now if you have three data points which are located here, one is this one, another one is this one, and the third one is this one. So what you want to see is how much percentage this particular cluster is coming from the green one and how much percentage for this cluster is coming from the yellow one. So how will you do that? It's easy. So what you will do is you will actually, you know, draw a vertical line. So if you draw a vertical line like this, you can see that the contribution of the green is more as compared to the contribution that it is getting from yellow. So that means if that is the case, then what you will do is you will make green more and less of yellow, which is this. For this case, you see both of them are 50-50%. So what you will do, you will actually shade them with equal color with 50-50% probability. And in this situation, what you observe is that the yellow is more and the green is less. So you will do something like this, where green is less and yellow is more. So this is actually showing you the example in case of one dimension where you are checking the height of that Gaussian distribution, and based on that height you are actually giving the percentage information in terms of the shading. So similarly what we are doing here is, in case of two dimension, we are actually calculating the height of the two dimensional function. Just a second, actually my battery is about to drain. I just want to connect it so that not be a problem. Okay, so as you can see here, so in case of one dimensional setting, we do this type of soft clustering like this. But in case of two dimensional setting, you can visualize yourself that what you will do, you will take the height of that particular two dimensional structure, and you see that what is the magnitude of that, and depending upon that you will assign the percentage of that particular Gaussian distribution to that particular data which you are considering. Any questions here regarding this soft thresholding? Okay, so if there are no questions, so let me discuss the Gaussian mixture model algorithm, which we are calling as GMM algorithm. So here, what we do is we actually start with the random Gaussian distribution first. We start with the random Gaussian distribution. By saying random Gaussian distribution means we will start with the random value of mu and sigma. So by starting with the random Gaussian distribution, then you move to the loop, and in loop you have to do two different things. In the two different things, what two different things are? You color the data points as per the Gaussian distribution. So based on the closeness of that data point to the Gaussian distribution, you will color the data points accordingly. As we discussed here, you can see we are doing coloring of the data points based on the proximity of that data point to a particular Gaussian function. So depending upon that, you will be doing coloring of the data points, and the second one will be you have to recalculate the Gaussian parameters which you have randomly assigned here. So here you are randomly putting a value of mu and sigma, but now you will recalculate that Gaussian parameters as per the colors. So what colors you have defined, based on that you will recalculate the Gaussian distribution function. So let us discuss how we will achieve this particular this particular answer by going step by step to the Gaussian mixture model algorithm. So the first case is first step is the start with the random Gaussian distribution. So if you have this data set which is given over here, what we do, we are doing a random initialization of the Gaussian distribution. So you can see I am randomly initializing, one is on this side, another one is on this side, with the random values of mu and sigma for both of them. So if we randomly initialize, it will be like this. So this is the first step. The second step, what is the second step? You have to color the data points as per the Gaussian distribution. So now you see here, based on the proximity of this data point to this cluster and the proximity of this data point to this cluster, you will color all these data points accordingly. And you will all agree that all these data points here are very close to the yellow contour plot, so most of them will be yellow, and all the data points lying on somewhere this are close to green cluster, so they will be completely green. But some of them here which are in between, they are lying in between the yellow and the green cluster, so they will be having different variation in the percentage of the probability that they are belonging to either this cluster or to the this cluster.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, the actual Gaussian plot will be in 3D, right? Because the contours are
Yes,
in
yes,
2D.
yes, yeah, yeah. So this is
And
showing you the
yeah,
2D plot of that.
yes. And sir, if we just see it mathematically, then
Hmm.
there will be infinite 2D contour plots,
Yes,
spanning to till infinite.
yes,
So
yes,
like it will
yes.
never end.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's why I let me show you that also. So if you have this green, it will continue to be like this, and same for yellow also. So for yellow also it will be like this, and that's why all these data points in between that you have here, depending upon how far they are from green and how close they are from yellow, depending upon that they will define the percentage probability of all these data points. Understood? See.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that was a good question. So it's like these contour plots are not restricted to what I have drawn. They will be infinite in because the Gaussian distributions are of infinite support. So the corresponding contours on the 2D will also be keep on we can plot them. So based on that you will have something like this. So here we have this random initialization that we have done. So now the second is to color the data points. So as you can see here, again please do not because these are all random which I have drawn. You can draw depending upon your thinking, like whether this point is close to this point, or this point is close to this point, or this point is close to this point. But you can understand what I am drawing here depending upon its closeness to either of these contours. The probabilities of the yellows and the blues, yellows and the green will change. So this is what coloring of the data points will be. And note that when I am saying coloring of the data points, what I am saying is I am actually doing soft assignments here. So this is basically soft assignment that has to be kept in mind. See, coloring is just for understanding, but somewhere or the other you are doing soft assignment which you are doing for each of these data points. So keep this in mind that this is important because it will come again and again. Coloring will not come. So what you are doing soft assignment of the data point. So once the soft assignments of the data point is done, the next step, if you go back and see, is once the soft assignment is done, now you have to calculate the Gaussian parameters as per the soft assignment that you have done. So now you know that you have already defined a Gaussian distribution like this. So you have to come up with the new version of Gaussian distribution with better values of mu and sigma, because right now the mu and sigma are random. So in order to calculate the new values of mu and sigma, what you will do, I have divided this into two steps. Like in the step two, in the step two, basically B is basically this B. Actually, I forgot to write. This is your B, this is your B, and this is your A, and this is your step two. So in step two, you have A and B. So A we have discussed this one, as you can see here, coloring of the data points. And the step B, what we are now discussing is, we are discussing the update of the Gaussian distribution. So updating of the Gaussian distribution will be done using these two within the step 2B. And what is that? You forget the earlier Gaussian distribution that you have drawn, and from the colors that you have created now, you have to fit the new Gaussian distributions based on these colors. So by saying that, means by saying this second point which I am saying, like from colors create new Gaussian distribution to fit the data points, what I am trying to say is, like for this particular scenario where you have different color contributions in each of the data points, first of all you take green color from here. Let me see what I have taken. Okay, first of all you take yellow color from here and remove the green color. So if you do that, you will get some data point like this. Here you will have only green color. If you see here, depending upon the contribution of the, sorry, you will have only yellow color here. So depending upon the contribution or the content of yellow, I am drawing these points as half points. So you can see the amount, if the yellow is more, then you will have more of a circular shape, but if it is not, then you will have half shapes or less than that. So so you can see here, depending upon its contribution, you will get yellow colors. So now the important point is that based on these contributions, based on these yellow points, like the amount that they are having, the yellow contribution that they are having, based on that you have to estimate the values of mu and sigma. You have to estimate the values of mu and sigma based on these data points. And once you estimate the values of mu and sigma, then you can feed these estimated values into the Gaussian, and you will come up with some new you will come up with some new ellipse which looks like this, let us say. So I am not perfect in drawing all this, but you can understand the concept which I am trying to say, that depending upon these ellipses, depending upon these data points, you have to come up with the estimated mu and sigma, which gives you this ellipse, let us say. And note that in earlier situations when you used to do Gaussian fitting into the data points, all the data points were having equal values. But here, you can see the data points are having partial values depending upon the yellow contribution that they are having. So that's why the centroid will not be exactly in the middle. It will be shifted somewhere or the other, because the contribution of these data points are more, whereas the contribution of these data points are very small. So you can say that your centroid will not be exactly in the middle. It is somewhere shifted because of the dominate thing that is happening because of these data points. So if that is the situation, your Gaussian distribution comes up with this in case of yellow one. And recall that your earlier yellow ellipse was here and then it shifted to this side. And this is step 2. And similarly, you can do it for green also. You can see now green will have this contributions, and depending upon the amount of contribution that green has, you will calculate the centroid and the mean of that ellipse, and then the new ellipse will be formed at this particular place, let us say. Whereas in the earlier case, your green ellipse was here, so it shifted to this side because you have calculated the sigma and the mu, that is the covariance and the mean of the new data points, which is shown over here. And also note that the contribution of the green here is 100%, whereas for all these are not 100%. So its centroid and the mean calculation will be something different from the actual sigma and mu that you actually calculate for normal data points. So if you calculate the mu and sigma for the normal data points, the value of mu and sigma that you will get for a Gaussian fitting of on these data points will be, will have some formula, but that formula will change depending upon this situation. These situations will change that formula, because now your data points are not fully data points, they have some partial contribution. So your mu and sigma will differ. It will not remain the same mu and sigma that you will get for the normal case of Gaussian distribution on this data points. If you have any question related to this estimation of mu and sigma, let me know. Okay.
Sir, it is almost like what we did in K-means, but in K-means we used to update the centroid. Here we are updating the mu and sigma, right?
Here we are updating the mu and sigma, and the second thing is we are not doing hard thresholding over there. Like in case of K-means, we
Right.
were doing saying this is in this cluster, this is in that. But here we are actually not doing it, and we are incorporating this information. This information which is given over in like here, that is how much of green and how much of yellow, and based on this information, you are actually calculating the mu and sigma of the ellipse. So that type of thing is here. The new thing.
Okay. Okay.
So now after this, when you have when you converted this ellipse, when you shifted this ellipse to this, now you see what you do is you have finished this step, which is this one. Now you again go back to the first step, and in again when you go back to the first step, what you will do, based on the new fit Gaussian distribution, you have to color that data points again and do that step followed by this step, and you continue to repeat these two steps till you get the final answer. So if you see now, if I go back to the first step, what will happen? The first step will be this. So sorry, second step A, 2A will be this. And now you see, once the yellow one shifted to this and the green one shifted to this, now we have removed the colors. Now we have removed the soft clustering assignments from all these data points. So if you observe now, all the soft clustering information is gone. And now the soft clustering will be again done based on the proximity of these data points to these new fitted Gaussian distributions. So now you can understand that once you give the contribution of this data point to this, whether it's close to this or this, once you do that, again you do the Gaussian distribution fit on the newly created colors, and then you keep on repeating these steps till you get to the final answer, where you will get this result as the final answer, which is this one, this one. So you will get final answer as this one. So I hope you understood the overall picture of Gaussian distribution, like sorry, the GMM algorithm. If you do not understand any of that, let me know. Otherwise, we will move forward and try to show you mathematically that what's going on in behind this GMM algorithm.
Sir, like in K-means, we had a elbow algorithm to decide how many key we can
Yes,
have.
yes.
In this case, do you have something like that, sir?
No, no, no. Here also you have to come up with that point. Like you have to decide initially like how many clusters you want to
Okay,
yeah, do that.
okay,
That advantage is only with hierarchical clustering, where you can get series of family of clusters, and depending upon which cluster from where you want to break that, that advantage is coming in that type of algorithm only, not in these. Okay.
okay, sir.
So now, if you understood the each of these steps of the GMM algorithm, let's discuss a little bit of mathematics here. So here, if you see, what I am doing here is like a Gaussian mixture model is a density model that combines finite number of k Gaussian distributions. So this you are aware now, because we are using, we were using two Gaussian mixture models, sorry, two Gaussian functions. So basically the overall density function that involves the a contribution of these two. Let me draw here again. Let me show here only in one dimensional setting. So what I am saying is, as we have taken these two distributions, which is the yellow one and the green one and the yellow one. So if you observe that the overall distribution, what will that be? Overall distribution will be like this. Here you will be having green. Once you go here, it will be dominated by the yellow one, and then it will be like this. So here you observe that the overall distribution will be the blue one. This is the summation of these two Gaussians. And what we are saying is, in order to get this final result, which is the blue one, let us assume that we have two Gaussians here. Because you saw a blue curve like this, and you thought that okay, this is coming from the two Gaussians. So let us individually write them as alpha Gaussian 1 plus beta Gaussian 2, because by adding these two you will get this curve. So that type of setting in two dimensional also will remain the same, because this is in one dimensional, easy to show you. So the same will be replicated in the discussion of two dimensional setting. So so this is what I am trying to give here. So you can see now that the combined blue curve, this is the blue curve which I was discussing, the combined probability density function of that blue curve is actually summation of the individual curve, summation of the individual Gaussian distributions. So in our discussion we were taking k as 2. So here you can see we have alpha and beta scaled with these Gaussian distributions. So the first is the yellow one and the other one is the green one, and each of them are scaled by pi k. Pi k scaling means you are actually scaling the height of these Gaussian distributions. Like this will be, this height will be pi 1 and this height will be pi 2. So this pi 1 and pi 2 are actually, alpha and the beta thing. So these scaling of the Gaussians are included in this pi 1 and pi 2, which is given over here. So this is a normal, thing which this can be easily visualized. So here note that this pi k will lie in the range of 0 and 1, and the summation of these pi k's are actually 1. So this is a constraint on these parameters, that are scaling parameters that you have. And note that this theta is actually a set of mu k, sigma k and pi k. See here, the thing is we want to estimate mu k, sigma k, right? Because every time, depending upon the iterations, you are changing your Gaussian function. And I told you that you have to estimate mu and sigma. So this is actually you have to estimate every time. And also you have to come up with the new value of pi k. So the algorithm, the Gaussian mixture model algorithm, what it tries to do is it tries to estimate pi k, mu k, sigma k from this equation. That is the main crux of GMM algorithm. So how will you do that? So in order to do that, if you assume that you have a data set capital X which has multiple such data points x1 till xn. So these are all the data points that we have that we have for the clustering algorithm. So now, and note that each of these data points are also a vector. These individual data points are also a vector. So if you calculate the probability density function for this complete X, which is a combination of all these n elements, and if you assume that all these X's are IID, independently identically distributed, so what happens is you can write the probability of all these individual ones and multiply them together. So here you can see I have applied IID constraint over here. So in when we apply that, you will get multiplication of all these individual probabilities of these data points. And we know that this particular thing is actually this. So what actually it says is that each of these values, this particular point, it is trying to estimate estimate the probability of this point, like how much it is coming from k equal to 1 cluster and how much it is coming from k equal to 2 cluster. This is what it is trying to show over here. So if you observe that if you have these two clusters like this, so if you have this x over here, so if you make the projection onto the clusters, what it will try to show is, what this is trying to show is, it is trying to show the probability of this data point, like how much it is coming from green cluster and how much it is coming from yellow cluster. So as I was telling you that soft thresholding is something like a probability. So this is what is this particular expression is trying to show you. So here you can replace this thing by this expression which we have written earlier. So if you replace this, you will get easily, you will just put this value over here and you will get the answer. But now what we will do, we'll take log of this particular expression, this thing. We will take log of this. So if you take log of this expression, you know that this pi will actually become summation when you do log, and this is the log of this particular thing. And now you can substitute this value over here. So if you substitute this value over here, you will get this expression. And this expression, if you see, it is basically log of a plus b plus c, like this. It's like this. And you can now observe that there is no such kind of identity which can actually divide this into simpler forms. You cannot do that because it's log of a plus b plus c plus d plus e. You cannot divide it into simpler forms. That's why, because of this reason where you have additions within the log, because of this reason you do not have closed form solution for this when you want to estimate mu and sigma. So the mu and sigma will not be having any closed form solutions, as it was in case of your linear regression setting where you had a closed form solution for the weight estimation. If you remember, your weight estimation was having a closed form solution. But here, because of this reason, the estimate of mu and sigma which you will do from this expression will not have a closed form solution. So now what we want to do is, we want to find the optimal values of mu, sigma and pi k from this expression. This is we are calling as L. Note here I am calling this expression as L, and this is the expression from where you have to estimate these parameters. So it's very easy, because you can easily verify these expressions. This is coming from the maxima minima thing. What you are doing, you are calculating the partial derivative of the loss with mu k, you are calculating the derivative of the loss with sigma k, and then you are calculating the derivative of the loss with mu k. Sorry, not mu k here, it will be pi k. Made a mistake here. It will be pi k here. So basically what you will do is you will calculate the individual derivative of the loss with respect to each of these parameters and you equate it to 0 here. This is very simple, right? When you want to calculate the you want to calculate the values of the parameters, you do the derivative of it and you get it to 0. I don't want to go into the details of this, but it's also called as maximum likelihood estimation, which we have never gone through, so I don't want to confuse you with that. But once you take the log of this expression and then you take the derivative to estimate the mu and sigma, so what you are doing some way or the other is you are doing maximum likelihood estimate of the mu and sigma parameters. So if you are interested, you can go in that direction, but I don't want to go in there. So also note that if you want to, because here if you see this expression, you are taking the derivative of the mu k with log of p of x theta. So what I am saying is, let us say if I say mu k, sigma k and pi k as the general theta, because general theta is actually a set of mu k, pi k and sigma k. So you can write something like this also. Like if you do a derivative with respect to theta, for this it's very easy. That is, log of p will be 1 by p, and then you take the derivative with this. So this is the expression which you can use in calculating the derivatives. So the important thing is, I don't want to go into the details of the derivation, because otherwise this class will become too big and it will create confusion. So I just wanted to give you the final results, and you can go at your own pace and can derive these results, and to if you want, but the results are very easy. You can, it's just the mathematical manipulations of the of the equations, and you will get the following results, which I will be showing you now. So now what we will do is we will define a responsibility. By responsibility, I want to say is you are doing soft assignments. Please recall, I have explained this in very details. So it is soft assignments to the K mixture component. So the soft assignments which I am doing in by showing you by the colors is mathematically represented like this. So what it shows is the soft assignment of the data point n belonging to the cluster K. Note, data point n belonging to the cluster K is the soft assignment, is given by this. So if you recall that it's a very easy expression, because if you want to see the contribution of the data point n to a cluster K is equivalent to saying, let us find the value for the particular cluster K. This is C, it's only for particular cluster K. You are finding the value of that data point, the projection of this data point on that specific cluster pi k, and then you are dividing it by the all the summations of the clusters. So all the clusters are summed from 1 to k, you are dividing it with that, and the contribution from that specific cluster k will come over here. So as you can recall that it's something like a probability that you are calculating, because you are dividing it by the total number, sum of the total clusters, and this is the individual kth cluster which you are actually targeting to calculate the contribution of the data point n to that cluster k. So note that if it is a probability, then each of these individual responsibilities of soft clustering will be greater than 0, and if you take summation on all the clusters for that particular data point n, the value comes out to be 1. So RNK is basically the responsibility, or you can say the soft clustering, or here this is normal way of explaining. It's a responsibility of the kth mixture component for that nth data point. So now you can observe that how we have mathematically represented the shadings that we discussed last time. We did some shading here, right? So this shading type of information we are mathematically encapsulating like this. So now once you have this information, which is the shading information, and if you remember that what we were doing next, we were doing here, if you remember, I will recall it back. If you remember that based on these shadings, we were calculating the mu's and sigmas. If you remember this and this, based on the shadings, you are calculating mu and sigmas. And I told you that these mu and sigmas will not be the same mu's and sigmas that you will get for the maximum likelihood estimate for normal data points. Like if you have data points which are fully observable, then the mu and sigma that you get from this will be different from the mu and sigma that you will get from this. So if that is the situation, let us now calculate the step 2 where you have updation of the means. So in updation of the means, the new mean, if you observe, the new mean that is coming up is this one. This is the updated mean. And note that you have this RNK coming along with XN. Here you have RNK coming along with this XN. So this is the contribution of a data point with that particular cluster. So if, let us say, if this contribution is unity for all the clusters, then you can see that this will reduce to this. So this you already know, it's a mean of the data points, which is actually mu k, and this is actually also called as maximum likelihood estimate. And now you can see, because you have different contributions of the data point to different clusters, this RNK will change the mean from mu k to mu k nu. So it will not be the same because of this RNK, which is the responsibility factor which we have shown over here. Now similarly, once you have updated the means, you have to update the covariance also. So covariance update can be done like this. And note, again you have RNK here. So if the contribution of all the data points are same, then this value will be 1, and you can see it comes out to be the same covariance matrix which you know already. So this is the updation of the covariance, in which includes the responsibility factor. And here I am writing NK, which is in the bottom, as this. The next thing that you want to update is the mixture weights. See, every time what you are doing is you are actually, playing with the mean and variance of this Gaussian distribution. You try to uh, either make this Gaussian distribution like this or like this, depending upon the variation of mu and sigma. You are changing the Gaussian distribution, but the one thing that you are not changing is the height of this Gaussian distribution. As I told you that the height of the Gaussian distribution is actually pi k, so this contribution is also changing every time with the iteration, and that value comes out to be this. And note that this is actually this, and again this pi k nu depends upon the RNK. So you have to update mixture weights, covariance and means to get to the newer step. So now once you do this, it actually comes into the category of expectation maximization algorithm, which actually is nothing but what I have explained you in our earlier slides. So what is that expectation maximization algorithm? You initialize with arbitrary sigma, mu and pi k and alternate until the convergence is achieved between the expectation step and the maximization step, where the expectation step is evaluating the responsibility factor RNK, that is the soft clustering that you have to do. And in the maximization step, what you have to do? You have to update the responsibility factor. You have to update using this responsibility factor. You have to re-estimate the parameters mu k, sigma k and pi k. So this is the algorithm that governs the GMM algorithm. So some way or the other, this is basically the working horse for GMMs. So any questions related to this discussion that we have done today? Okay, so if you do not have any questions, so this finishes off with the clustering algorithms that we wanted to discuss for this particular course. And in the next lecture, what we will do is we will discuss reduction algorithms. So data reductions, we will see how we can do data reductions using different techniques. And so thanks for watching today, and we will meet in the next class. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir. Thank you, sir.